got it listed for. I saw it last night. I'm like, does it mean we're not fishing? He's well, I'm gonna get a 44 and get a new boat, but
hey, buddy.
I don't know if he'll be ready in time.
Oh,
So
look.
we'll see what happens. Hi.
Hey.
Yeah. Interesting. I wonder what, I mean, they had some success too. Were you running that boat all?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't fish the meat stuff, but we fished a couple of the shellfish tournaments. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Patrick Price joins us today from Jensen Beach, right?
Yeah.
And
beautiful area.
We're here with our show regulars, Captain Skip Dana and Captain Art Sapp. So this is Connected by Water, presented by Joey Cardi, Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Always got to say it, right? Because he does support the show greatly. What kind of truck you drive?
A Dodge.
Nice.
Look at that.
It's funny. I noticed that when I pulled in. So we got 3 Dodges lined up.
That's nice.
Well, 4 with yours
Well,
out there.
4's out back. Yeah, the 4th one's out back. So we got all Rams here today. So
Nice.
Yeah, very nice. So listen, if you're in the market for a new vehicle, particularly a Ram truck, go see the folks at Joey Cardi, and they will hook you up. They always do. Great prices, great deals, great service, great quality.
Great people.
Great people. Go see Dean. That's my sales guy, and he will take care of you. Tell him I sent you. And also, if you get a chance, check out connectedbywater.com. We got lots of stuff for sale, though. Cool art, cool products, cool apparel, cool everything, custom work. Just give us a shot. And so, listen, I'm going to kind of cut that ad there short today and get right into it because we have a very important topic to discuss, right? One topic today, I know generally you guys come on, we do our tournament talk edition. This is not a tournament talk edition. We can dabble into it if you want, but I think we want to stay on point today. And we're going to talk about sharking. That is our one and only topic today. So,
or shark predation.
Right. Patrick,
Shark abundance.
You started a Facebook group called Let's Tax the Taxman, and it's kind of what shined a light on sparking this episode here.
Genius, dude. I don't know. How did nobody think of...
A lot of us have talked about it up our way for a while, but I think there's this fear of a backlash. So what spurred it for me... besides all the incidents of fish getting eaten with charters and disappointment and stuff like that, and then now sales. I mean, the sales that got eaten this year, I had 8 eaten. I've had 1 eaten in the previous 25 years of professionally fishing here, which I looked up on my website. I think it was January 2013.
And it was a shocker. It was kind of cool.
It was
because
blown away. Yeah, we got the picture of the head, the guy standing there. You know, it's like, well, that sucks. It's never happened, but it's kind of cool. And then now it's become a problem. So beyond a problem. But I had a conversation. A guy actually reached out to me from Harbor Branch a couple weeks ago, and we had about an hour-long conversation. And he was recommended to me by a charter captain in Fort Pierce, Tris, on the last Mango, and said that they were going to be doing some science and research on shark-based science and research, and thought that maybe I would be interested in doing it. So this engaged about a 45-minute conversation while I was sitting in the Publix parking lot. And I said, the last thing I said to the guy, I said, well, I don't really know how we can gather the research between now and when they want to start in 2021, but I'm going to create a social media page so we can get some pictures and some experiences for you guys to go look at. So I went home, talked to my 12-year-old kid, had him dial it up, and that's how the page started, in all honesty. It's been overwhelming to see everybody get involved. There's a lot of people that I know that we talk on the phone regularly up and down the coast from the Carolinas to Key West that are our peers that we talk with regularly that have the problems. So we know there's a problem that extends far beyond my inlet that I fish in. But I think a big part of it, I don't want to make them go away. We know there's this huge value to the ecosystem. They've been here forever. They're adaptable to a lot of things. But when you manage a fisherman, recreational, charter, and commercial, and that management is getting superseded by sharks killing everything, that's not sustainable for our fisheries. Whether it's snapper, cobia, grouper,
king, sails,
sails, anything that's got a regulation on it. If we're allowed 2 cobias per person in federal waters, and for me to catch my 6 with my 3 anglers, it takes me to kill 12 with sharks. That's a problem.
Yeah, a little bit.
Even 3 is too much. So it's got to a point where a lot of us, we won't even fish for them when they're that bad. We'll just leave. I stopped using conventional tackle for them 2 years ago because the best way I found to get away from them was to open the bail up and let them go. Well, you let anybody on a charter try to back a drag off,
You backlash.
you're going to backlash. So I'm got them slamming the bales up with their palm of their hand so their fingers don't get caught. Let them run away. We clear everything else up. It's not as sporty, but then they just crank in the slack and the last 10 or 15 feet, fight real hard, and hopefully in gaff range. And that's the way we've been able to catch the few that we can.
Yep.
So the page blew up, and here we are.
Yeah, here we are. And we discussed before the show started that one of the things that I want to do is kind of unblur the line a little bit of we're not out for just mass, murders of sharks and everything like that. Everyone in this room here is a conservationist at heart. And I want to make that clear before we start really getting deep into this conversation, because I don't like using the term, at least I don't of lately, just like using the term environmentalist at all.
Not at all.
Because I think that word has been bastardized
been stolen.
It's been stolen, because I really do think that everyone in this room is also an environmentalist from my definition of the term. But that has become a militant term at that point, so we kind of hesitate to use it around here. Y'all are on the water. You make a living on the water. You guys are on the water pretty much every day. Tell me some stories about how this thing, I know we've talked about it on the show before, some of the ways that this can be curbed, because I printed out a couple articles, which I rarely ever do on this show, to kind of just remind me to hit on a few topics, because it seems like the big thing that legislation has going for it is public opinion that they want shark finning to go away. Right, which I know
It's a disaster.
Right. So, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Lots of things to talk about. I wanted to talk a little bit about how we first started recognizing the issue, and I still had my conch when I first started seeing an issue. We were catching the gag groupers, just were amazing. They were on a few of the wrecks out here in shallower water, and in the beginning, sharks weren't an issue at all. And then by 2002. We started seeing them. They started eating a few of the groupers or whatever, but you were still able to catch them. And when they did get them, they got them from the tail and they bit half of them, and it was frustrating. But you got the other half. Well, the sharks learned. You'd pull up, you'd anchor down on a wreck, start fishing, and the fish, you'd start marking them. He'd be sitting under your boat 20, 30 feet down, sitting there waiting. Well, he learned instead of chasing from up, you'd hook the fish is coming up, he'd roll over and go down, and they got it all every time. So I haven't intentionally grouper fished since 2003 because of that. Got sick of feeding them to them. Which kind of sucks because a grouper's good to eat. And there were other regulations came in where they shut down the wintertime on us, which made it very difficult to catch them. Our best of it is January, but it's December through March or so for the gag groupers, and not allowed to take them January through May 1 anyway. So that ended that. But it seemed like at that time there were bull sharks down in our way. Still didn't see many sandbars. When a sandbar ate something, it was shocking. Well, at the time also, there was still a reasonable commercial fishery for them.
Right.
That has gone away entirely. One, it will go away permanently if they are successful with that piece of legislation that was running through Florida, and I'm not sure where it is right now. I think it's gone away.
I think it might have gone away. I know that
But that was on the finning thing.
on the finning thing. I know Kristen Jacobs she was kind of front running. God rest her soul. We recently lost her to cancer. But that was one of the bills that she was championing through. She's a Democratic House representative out of Coconut Creek here. That I think there need to be some clarification. I know Marco Rubio presented something that was a little bit more in favor of the reality of what we're kind of facing, rather than just saying,
but still pretty
environmental,
restrictive.
flying that environmental flag and saying shark fins, and everyone goes, yes, shark fins bad, whatever you need, just put the bill through. And I think that's pretty much how things like that happen.
Yep.
I think everybody can agree that the shark finning thing is horrible. There's no sense in killing a fish for a handful of fins.
Fins only.
Right.
Take the whole thing and use it. And
Correct.
But that's never happened in this country.
Yeah.
The U.S. has never done that. It's been the entire fish goes to the dock.
Yep.
They make the majority of their money on the fins, but they still had a reasonable market on the meat.
Yeah.
And it was worth it.
One of the fellas that's on there that I find most intriguing to join, I don't know if Thomas
the
Osborne.
commercial guy.
Yeah. Well,
right?
he's got one of the only exempted permits
Correct.
right now.
But so scientifically based. He's got to carry observers on the boat all the time. He's given an allocation, but he's 100% invited anybody that doubts what he does and where all the fish goes and the processing part of it. Everything goes to a place.
Market, yeah.
Every piece of the fish has a home.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for to know. You know, I'm not going to disagree. Okay, I think the argument gets thrown out that sharks are endangered. I'm not going to disagree. Worldwide, there could be a problem because there is no legislation and there's no regulation in a lot of parts of the world. It's just kill, kill, kill.
It's there. They just don't
Everything.
pay attention to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Or that is the case. Yeah. So, but looking up and down here at the East Coast, you know, and one of the biggest issues that I've always had with our fisheries management is you look at treat Key West and North Carolina as the same body of water
Stupidest
in
thing.
regulation.
Yeah.
You know.
So I'm on that council.
Right. So, but how different is it from St. Lucie Inlet to Jupiter Inlet, Jupiter Inlet to Palm Beach
Yeah.
Inlet, especially targeting bottom fish?
Oh yeah.
You know, and it's just
Different
like
animal.
it
Even
totally
the way
different.
the way you got to fish for them is completely different in the different areas. Yeah.
Dude, even Georgia to North Carolina is 2 worlds apart.
Yeah.
All of it. It's insane. And for Georgia and South Carolina to have to suffer the same regulation that we do, Hillsborough Inlet has more boats go out of it on one weekend than Georgia has in the entire fishing season.
Right.
Offshore boats. It's ludicrous to lump all that together, but that's the way the law's written
way
right
it's
now.
been. Yeah, so it's an interesting twist on things, you know, from day one, just with regulation in itself. But I, you know, to me, the best way to do this is with commercial harvest because it's highly regulated. If they're going to add a couple of boats, which to me would be the make sensible thing, let's add 2 more boats, get 2 guys that want to do it. You know, they can talk to Tom and see what kind of money they can make or whatever, and they can work a little bit Jupiter south. I think he can't come past Jupiter, what I understand.
Not within his
It's not within his
Permit.
limitation of his permit. But, you know, that's obviously the best way and the most controlled way. You can document the numbers. You know, another way is a tournament. That's probably the second best way is you have a multi-inlet tournament and you know, but that's only processing bull sharks because we don't want to kill hammerheads. I don't want to kill nurse sharks. We don't want to kill tiger sharks. We don't want to kill anything but
would be nice to be allowed to kill sandbars, but we're
correct.
not allowed to.
And that's the only other hiccup.
But also the hammerheads and the other some, they're not the
they don't
problem.
bother us.
Yeah,
They
the
don't-
sandbars seem to be like the biggest culprit. I mean, the bulls
Sandbars
and
and
the bulls.
bulls,
Yeah,
yeah.
but-
Sandbars
From
and bulls.
Lake Worth Inlet north, the bulls, and at times to the south, but most of the time, Lake Worth Inlet north, the bull sharks are unbelievable. And then sandbars there south, or everywhere, really. Sandbars from North Carolina to Key West.
So we are seeing the direct result of
Taking away a commercial fishery.
taking away the commercial
Used to be
fishery and
20
how
boats.
now it's encroaching on
Here's the crazy
recreational
thing.
fisheries.
The crazy thing is those 20 boats that were doing it until 2004-ish, 4 or 5, I don't remember exactly when they shut it down. I should have done the research, but busy. Anyway, the majority of them were fishing up there around Canaveral, and they were making a good living and taking enough fish that they weren't proliferating to the north and south too badly. Within a couple of years, they're everywhere. I mean, it was a blink of an eye, and they're everywhere all of a sudden. So there was a healthy fishery, and they would have quit doing it if the fish weren't still there, because you can't make a living if there aren't any sharks there. So
Right.
clearly, they weren't putting a hurt on them bad enough that they couldn't continue making a living. And we once or twice a year have a fish eaten by a shark, a sandbar shark, and shut it down. And for it to explode like this just tells you how healthy and strong that shark population is.
Crazy.
Yeah,
I
I
read
mean-
somewhere that the female gives birth to 15 pups annually. I mean, times
How many?
Thousands,
yeah, it's
tens of thousands.
You know, one of the things too that I would have to do a little more research on it, but it makes sense, and it's been admitted by, and I'm not here to put anybody out of business. First of all, I'm here to try to help find a way to
Survive it.
to make it palatable for everybody that makes a living on the water, right? So, but you look at some of the dive operations, which we don't have them in Stewart, but I see a lot of it on the page in Palm Beach and Jupiter, where they complain about the shark feeding, and the argument is fishermen chum too. Okay, well, it's sure.
When's the last time you chummed?
Been a long time.
Yeah,
A long,
you can't do
time. A lot of the tournaments can't do it. You can't. I'm not going to chum for
I'm not saying
mangrove
legally.
snappers.
I'm just saying you can't because the sharks lead everything.
Because the sharks are bad. But there's people that have shared with me in Messenger that are on the group that are friends or followers of these businesses where they've bragged about changing the migratory patterns of the sharks, that they're here
They have,
year
for
round
sure,
now.
100%.
And one of the guys made a comment about one of the dive boats said, well, we see one tiger shark that's here now year round. And the guy goes, well, maybe we would see 10 or 12 if they weren't managed or people didn't kill them or whatever the case may be. And I said, maybe you see 10 or 12 if that shark was able to go up and mate and,
And
do its
reproduce.
thing and reproduce and not be stuck here feeding on
Yeah.
free food.
Yep.
So there's two ways to every argument, right? So
Yeah, well, tiger sharks are restricted. There's nobody
They
killing
are,
sharks,
right.
tiger sharks commercially.
well, legally.
So yeah, true. But
There's a lot of people that unfortunately were bragging about it on the page, whether they're actually doing it or not. It's easy to sit behind
Yeah,
a keyboard
sure.
and brag. Pretty stupid to do it too because it's illegal.
Yeah.
But we're trying to quell those people out of the page because that's not what it's about.
the tigers are still pretty abundant offshore too. Back when I was buoy fishing a lot, that was one of our major fish that were preying on fish on the gear, and then also you'd hook a bunch of them, and then they all go back alive. We saw quite a few of them out there. Them and the Cuban night sharks.
I think something that was also brought up to me, I'll leave his name out of it, but I was having a conversation with somebody that wants to be involved with the tournament, and he said, I think one of our biggest problems is the closure of the Bahamas fishery and our proximity to the Bahamas and how many fish may come back and forth that 40 miles, and then they maybe gain residence here. There's no shark fishing or there's regulation now in the Bahamas.
And has been for a little while too.
It's been for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting
Yeah.
twist on it as well.
I mean, it's another example of how China ruins everything too. I mean, a lot of the shark finning. I mean, the major corporate hub of that is Hong Kong,
Oh yeah.
Right.
and that's really a big problem. I mean, the fact that China goes once again unregulated, and we're seeing like the extreme example of unregulation, just to prove further the point that we're all about conservation, and they say conservation be damned. You know what I mean?
It's an interesting argument there, and I hadn't heard that one so much yet with the Bahamas, because many of the species you're dealing with over there that are messing with you, the bulls, yes, but whatever those brown sharks are when you're tuna fishing,
Are those
big
silkies?
Yeah, I thought
Those
they
big
were
offshore
silkies.
silkies?
they might be
Giant
freaking
silkies.
giant.
There's
yeah.
a bunch of those on the ledge too.
Yeah.
Tons of those on the ledge.
Yeah. You sure those up there aren't duskies? I've seen a few duskies up there on the ledge.
The ones
There's a
that
little bit of everything.
the ones that we see most of the time during the winter and that will
Those
catch
little
bottom
pups,
fish and
those
stuff,
silkies.
you don't see them much bigger than 4.5, 5
Yeah.
foot, but they look identical over there tuna fishing, except they're
Giant.
7 foot, which you don't think they get that big.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Man,
was up-
they're smart to the game.
When I was up there, we made one pass on the ledge and caught a few bonitas, and there was so many. Without exaggeration, there was 20 sharks,
Oh yeah.
and there was at least 4 or 5 bulls, and the rest were either duskies or those big silkies. I'm not sure what they were. Dark
But it's
brown.
funny now that they're.
Oh, and there's a few sandbars too.
Yeah, but it seems like outside of 130 foot, the sandbars are all over you up there, and inside of that, the bull sharks are all over you up there, and they're segregating themselves, and it's all bad.
Have you been experienced more sailfish getting eaten? And that's
It's
kind of
funny.
like
How long ago was that one you had sharked?
The first one
Yeah.
would have been, I think I looked it up and shared it. It was 2013, I think.
So the first one I can ever remember in my life was the one Louis got sharked in that tournament. That was
on the
probably
TV show.
7-8 years ago. That's all right.
We were in the black boat. I'll put a date on it. December.
Probably 13, close to that.
So yeah, mid December second week of December. I'll take a minute, but I'll get the exact date on it here.
So the fish we
Yeah.
had eaten,
That was
we
bull
had
shark.
some really good fishing going on up in the jungle, which happens sometime in December and January, where our bait shows up north of the inlet. Now where all of our cobia fishing goes on, all the wrecks are there, and there was a ton of cobias. There was big schools of redfish on the bottom. It was kind of cool what was going on, and the Jupiter Billfish tournament was won up in there one year by some of the live bait guys in 50 foot of water.
I was
And,
there. I remember that. It was fun.
So that it was kind of understood, you didn't see the sharks feeding on anything and all that, but it was like, okay, I can understand why it's going on. It's like we're fishing in SeaWorld right now. There's just so much going on. There's redfish on the bottom, on your bottom rig when you're trying to catch a cobia. There's cobias everywhere. There's tunas, mahis, sails. And it was, like I said, it was kind of cool that it happened, even though it wasn't
Yeah.
cool. But now 8 in this past season, and that's just, to me, is an astronomical number. It's pack feeding.
Yeah.
You
Oh yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It's just once one of them gets honed in on there, if that fish can't get away or you can't get to it quick enough to let it go, it's going to be over.
yeah.
And-
I think that's really the issue with it, the pack feeding.
That's what we can
because
see.
you can't really get away
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
it.
How
How
many
many fish do we let
Yeah.
go that are slowly swimming away, going down, trying to recover,
and get plowed?
and they get plowed? And
I
I bet
know.
that's an astronomical number.
I know
of
at least
all
2 or
different
3 in
species.
the Palm Beach tournament this year got right at the end of the day. We caught a double at the end of the day. We let them both go, and I know they both got wiped out.
Yeah, you see 10 sharks around the boat while you're letting them go. Their chances of getting anywhere slim to none.
And here's a twist. We in all our charters, we're constantly look. It's federal law. We don't take them out of the water. We lean over the side for a picture, and then you're looking at a menagerie of sharks down there that this thing's fixing to go
Here,
back to.
hold
So
this.
watch this. No, we're going. So we throw them in a boat. We haul ass and go. So now, in an attempt to save this fish's life, we're breaking the law.
Right.
Right.
But so. Why, if you're going to take them out of the water, why can't you take a picture with them real quick?
That's what they do. That's what they do with bonefish. They pull them out of the water, run 150, 200 yards, and put them back in the water. If not, they'll get eaten right away.
So it's interesting you say that. So I did a tagging program with the FWC probably 3 or 4 years ago where they were putting transmitters in their belly liner to try to figure out their migratory pattern. What we've kind of figured out is Stewart is kind of a unique area in the sense that you get a Gulf population and a North Carolina population. The fish interact. Go a couple different directions. Maybe why we haven't
Sales or
extended-
kings or
cobias. Sorry.
cobias? Okay.
So they were paying me for however many tags we could put in. I was bringing some guys from a charters, letting them pay at a discounted rate. They would catch the cobias. While they were catching them, we would have them in this tube with the hoses. They do the surgery, take the finlet samples for DNA and measurements and all that crap, and we would chug offshore to get away, and then let the fish go away. Well, last year they're doing it on their own. I don't know if it's a budgeting thing or whatever, but they have their little FWC boat, and they're anchored up at the sand pile. And I watch them lose 10 fish before they catch their first one.
And then they throw it over right there.
Right there. And what's the point of that science?
Right.
You know, I mean, it just...
The tags in the belly swimming around.
In a shark's belly.
and it's funny, too, because they sent me some data on some of the fish, and they were like... They had one of the cobias swimming like 75 or 78 miles in a day and a half. And I'm like,
No chance.
and that seems awfully fast. I'm pretty sure that transmitter's in a shark's belly.
Yep.
So I don't know. Just a wonder of how many of everything is really getting eaten. And then now they want you to use the little fish elevator to let your your fish down.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't want to. That's a law now.
Right.
You know
So-
why that's there, and it's not going to end up doing us any good because of the shark issues as it becomes more, or the science community becomes more aware of it. Despite the fact that since I got on this council, I've been screaming at these scientists, this is happening. It's an isolated incident. I keep getting told. So I keep showing them more and more pictures, and more people are telling them, no, they're isolated instances. You're one boat. They're not on every boat. Well, bullshit. They're on every boat.
Right.
Wouldn't believe me. So that descending device, the thought there was in an attempt to get more red snapper season, an attempt, to get more days for red snapper season in the Atlantic side, if we can decrease the dead discard number, then theoretically that'll buy us more fish back and buy us more days. Well, they're going to up and realize that dead discards aren't the ones that float off from the boat because it didn't, that barotrauma, whatever got them. It's on their way down, they're getting plowed.
Sharks.
I'm not going to put a number out there, the percentage I think it is, and I don't say it at the council meetings either, because the science community will absolutely hold that against us and reduce that snapper season that much more.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And in a fishery that clearly everybody that spends a day in the ocean red snapper fishing in the areas where they live, says it's a totally recovered fishery.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I'm catching them off Hillsborough.
I know.
Lots of them.
I know. Yeah.
I found this article. It's from Florida, or for Fresh Take Florida. It discusses Florida fishermen fret as shark fin sale ban moves forward, talking about the commercial fishermen. And I was not surprised, but kind of enlightened to see that a representative from Moat Marine Laboratory Center said that anti-finning bills may be well-intended but have negative consequences, saying that banning the import and the export of fins in Florida will merely push the illegal trade underground, preventing regulation, and promote wastefulness by forcing local fishermen to throw away the fins on the sharks they catch. How much weight do you put to that kind of argument about things going underground?
I don't think enough of it can get done. That you can't make enough money off of going underground, I wouldn't think, because there are other places in the world that are still doing it. So it's not like it's going to drive the price up on it at all.
Right.
I appreciate the concern, but the real concern is it's a healthy fishery that needs to be taken advantage of, or we're going to get worse and worse in our current situation with the predation.
Yeah.
Depredation, or whatever the proper term is now.
I was interested to see that previous to this, California was the illegal hub of shark fin imports, and they're saying it's now turned to Florida. as the illegal hub, most of it coming from South America. I don't know, just bringing that up for whatever reason. Switching gears a little bit to divers. How much weight do you think that holds to some of these?
You talking about the commercial cattle carts, whatever,
Yeah.
carrying people out feeding them? It certainly educates them, but those sharks learn anyway. And like you're saying, the keeping them here year round, that's certainly a concern.
I mean, I think there's, again, going back to, I don't want anybody to try to ruin my business that I built for 11 years because I have an idea of what I think needs to be done, because I see how the shark fishing and sharks eating my fish affect my population and my customers who are spending thousands of dollars to come fishing for a day and then they lose their prize fish, right? So, maybe you have a season. Maybe you have a time of year where they can do that, is agreed upon, or
It's not a bad idea.
Or they can sign it, they can do 20 trips a year. I can tell you, if they did one trip a month where they baited those things after they've been as seasons as they are, I bet every time they went, if they dropped an empty basket down there for the next 30 days with divers, those sharks would still come up.
Yep.
You know why? Because they're trained to come there.
Yep.
And it's just like when I used to chum for cobias 3 or 4 years ago, and I would go to places, before I even got my shit in the water, there were
were
sharks swimming around the boat.
Yep.
So they're incredible creatures. They're adaptable. They're smart. They're probably some of the smartest creatures in the ocean. To that point, now it's become a detriment to the fishermen. They've adapted to where they can get an easy meal. And look, I'm not saying that the divers are the only ones to blame. There's plenty of people that chum and fish, and there's plenty of people that hang a bonito over. There's videos on the post. That's what we're trying to get rid of. I'm guilty of it. I was the first one to admit on there. I've done it.
Yep.
I did it in the past. I've seen the results of it. I'm not going to do it anymore because it's detrimental to my fishery. And I didn't go to school. This is what I know. So in order for me to have a business for the next 15 or 20 years, I have to protect my fishery on some level. And that comes back to the attitude of fishermen, whether you're commercial, charter, recreational, sport fishermen, you got to be conservationists at some level. You can't just be catch, kill, rape,
There's
pillage,
an economic
plunder.
impact to it.
There's a huge economic impact. And people are saying, I've heard the argument that the dive boats bring so much money to their area and whatever, but we can go throw numbers about how much fishing brings and how much diving brings to the state of Florida. That's not an argument.
No,
Right.
there's a hell of a lot
So-
more fishing
Yeah,
boats going.
exactly.
Yeah, you might have 3 boats at a time out there on the ledge doing the shark dives,
Right.
and you'll have a couple of 100 boats fishing out there.
So that's not
Yeah.
really a legitimate argument. I think that awareness is the first thing that needs to be, and part of this page was to try to create that. I think the second thing is we try to make some kind of proposal, and I encourage the divers to come on there. The problem is we got people that just can't have a civil conversation, so I got to delete the whole thing.
Yeah, it turns into
Which
that
sucks.
left wing,
It
right wing
sucks
kind of
because
conversation.
I want to hear what they have to say. I want to have the conversation.
A civil conversation.
A civil conversation. Maybe we can have some compromise without, blowing shit out of the water and ruining people's careers and stuff. I don't want them to say that they're necessarily going to totally be shut down. I don't think that's the attitude that we want. But, it could turn around. It could backfire on fishermen too. There's
Right.
a lot of ways this could go.
Well, it's
So-
like that. There's 3 sides to every story, right? His, hers, and the truth. And it's like then the truth is usually somewhere right down the middle, right? And I think that's really kind of what you're talking about with the compromise and what you really need to get the message through to people. Like, all right, this is not what's happening right now is not cool,
Right.
And that's the bottom line. That's why we're here today.
For sure.
If it wasn't an issue, we wouldn't be talking about it.
And I think that the shark feeders, they can't say that they have not adversely affected the sharks. They're not migrating anymore.
Well, they've admitted to it.
Yeah,
on
they're
some
not.
of the
They're not
pages,
going.
so-
They're not going in their normal spawning patterns. Like the guy said about that one tiger shark. That's there all the time on the ledge. That's not normal. It's supposed to go north. Supposed to go south. Supposed to.
So then you get the
Go do
people
his
on the
thing.
page that go, well, if they love their sharks so much, they wouldn't disrupt their migratory pattern. And if they realize
Valid point.
people are pissed off and they're going to go have a shark tournament on Juneau Ledge and kill 100 bull sharks in a day, maybe they would change their attitude. So there's a couple different ways to look at it, and like I said, we're trying to find some civil way to do this without one, putting people out of business or getting people so pissed off they're threatening people and shooting people and doing whatever people do these days.
And me personally, I don't want to kill them. I want them to go back to their natural.
Yeah.
I think
thing
sharks
of-
are beautiful. To
they're
be honest with you,
awesome
I really
creatures.
they're
People love seeing them. People love
beautiful
catching
beast.
them. But when they eat their sail or they eat your 30-pound grouper that you worked really hard to get out of the bottom, or they eat
Just to
your
get a
big
bite
snapper,
on.
right?
Right.
Yes, I'll just to get the
But
bite.
I think the biggest thing too is like those fish that are there on the ledge now, or pretty much anywhere in that area, they're trained and they know that if they hear a boat, there's food coming. And in Yellowstone, if the bear gets like that, they shoot them.
Right.
They get rid of them. Or any other kind of wild animal, if they get trained to not lose their fear of humans.
Look,
That's
somebody
a
brought up
problem.
a valid point on there, and it's hard to argue with. Right now, we're not allowed to feed gators. You're not allowed to feed bears.
Saw
You're not allowed
that.
to
Yes.
feed wolves. We're not allowed to feed pelicans,
Yeah.
right? So
How is it we're allowed to feed the most aggressive?
apex predator and aggressive predator and
In the ocean.
species in the ocean within a few miles of the beach.
Yep.
So,
I mean, that's what we've been saying too. Like this
Is it
is
a
all
matter
going
of
to change
time,
once
too?
someone gets attacked on the beach. But
Unfortunately, the sharks are HMS species, and they're not in that purview of the council that I'm involved in. Though we do talk about it quite a bit. But that would be it's a federal. It's the HMS group that is who we'd have to bring that up to, because inside of state waters it is
it's
illegal.
illegal. But it's a line, but it's an imaginary line.
it
We're
is.
not crossing a wall.
Yeah.
Yep.
There are fish know no fences. We all know that. I mean, you go catch a sail in 10 foot of water inside the sea buoy sometimes of the year. So they don't know any bounds. When that bait supply starts happening, or the fall run, or the fish move onto the beach, and it's too rough for the dive boats to go for a week, they're going to go look for food. Where are they going to go? Where it's all at on the beach. So, it's a matter of time. I think we've been saying it. We've been saying it. It's a matter of time for the guys that have been shooting the cobias off the backs of the bull
And a
sharks.
couple of them got bit.
A couple of them have gotten bit. And what I think is most interesting on that is we see the guys that are free diving that have said they've seen a huge change and impact in the attitude of the shark in the last 3 to 4 years.
Towards the divers.
Much more aggressive.
Towards the diver. Never used to follow me. I'd see one shark a dive. Now there's 20. They follow me the whole time. They know the sound of the band snapping. They know this. They know that. Now I've seen up our way. I've seen commercial guys dump a bucket of blood in the water and drift with the blood to attract the sharks to them. You see them get in there and do the bottle thing to get them fired up, to get them closer to them to shoot the cobias. But and so they have an impact on this too. You know, everybody's at fault on some level.
Yep.
I don't think any of us can disagree on that. It's just
I think the
where do
biggest
we go?
at fault is the reduction of the commercial fishery,
Yes,
though.
For sure.
Yeah,
You go
regulation.
from 20 boats to 1, and he is so heavily regulated.
And he's filling his stringers. Like he's having such good sets that and
Clearly.
short sets.
Yeah.
One set done.
Crazy.
Yep.
Crazy.
so where do we go? Like I think that's really the question, isn't it? Like what can be proposed, what can be done?
I mean,
Like what are the ideas?
So I think we have a tendency to focus on the shark divers up there.
Mhm.
They're definitely a problem, but the biggest problem is the overabundance of sharks up and down the coast, for sure. Because it's definitely amplified off Juneau, Palm Beach, but it's just as bad in Key West and Miami. It's not as bad as Miami, but
At
like-
times.
like Hillsborough is really bad. Boca is horrible. You have like little hot spots where it's just
Anywhere where the live bottom is
Yeah.
strongest,
Yep.
especially the sandbars are on it. But then the crazy thing is, it's as bad and worse. And thank God we don't have the dusky sharks in the populations we have of these other things. Them fuckers are really smart. I mean,
yeah.
a fish, and it happens a little bit with the kings. They'll get aggressive and get headed to a bait and get plowed before they even get to it. But those yellowfins in the wintertime when they're on the humps in the keys, those dusky sharks, a fish gets to moving on a bait and they'll plow it before it gets there. Yeah. You'll see the explosions. The rod just starts to load over.
We have that at the corner.
Yeah,
You'll
exactly.
be trolling, and you'll literally see a
those are dusky sharks.
blackfin sized
it's a
fish
boom, boom.
blow up, and then all of a sudden you're getting dumped, and you're like,
Yeah.
no, I just saw a fish this big air out on my little jet head lure,
Yeah.
and next thing you know, you fight the whole way to the boat, and it's a 200-pound shark. You know,
Yeah, a lot of the time those are dusky
instant
sharks that are
Impact,
doing it. Yeah.
Instant impact bite, crazy the timing.
I think the idea that you floated out there with the shark tournament was a good one. We joked about it before on past episodes. Oh yeah, the Connected by Water Shark Tournament, and then we would just like
Well, I
bang
think-
stick would be in your bucket and
I
all
think
this.
it's I think it's the better alternative because it's getting to the point now where like if you read through that page, guys are like, I'm just going to start killing them on my own.
And we don't want that.
Yeah, don't want
you,
that.
you don't want them to
that.
go to waste, you know.
No,
Right.
don't want it to go to waste. And then, and as I've talked to a couple of the guys that want to be involved, and we've had setting up a few Zoom calls and stuff. Some guys are fishing the White Marlin Open and stuff. So we're gonna reconvene when they get back. But we have to make it palatable to the general public as much as we can, because there's going to be people going, why? So the first thing is there's a couple ways to go about it. We can do it within the page where it's just like a core group of people know about it. You do a 2-day event. You kill what you're allowed to kill. We just make bull shark a meat on the dock. You have a release division, whatever. Doesn't help with the sandbar population, but sharks are smart. You start killing a few in an area,
They're going to start.
they're all going to
to.
settle down and move to different locations and step back for a minute and reevaluate the situation. They're going to reevaluate getting close to boats, stuff like that. But, I think involving as much science as we can for it. I think involving, proper charities or food banks for it, so there's a benefactor to the meat. What the last thing we need to do is have a shark tournament and have 150 carcasses end up in a dumpster or floating in Jupiter Inlet or somewhere.
Right.
That
would
can't
not-
happen.
that
a
can't
warehouse
happen.
uncovered with a bunch of
That can't happen. So, we have to lay out some good groundwork with the committee, but I think that would be a start. And if we don't get any communication with NOAA or National Marine Fisheries and we're not getting any recognition, then you just say we're going to have a shark tournament, which we're legally allowed to do every year, 3 times a year until somebody does something.
Yep.
You
Squeaky
know?
wheel mode.
I mean, that's and at some point, if the divers say, hey, we're starting to see this is a problem, we still want to have our dive business, but the shark numbers where we do this are getting limited or they're getting scarce, okay, we'll throttle back on the feeding. We'll cancel one of the tournaments. I mean, there's got to be some level of compromise within it. I mean, that makes the world go round now more so than ever, it seems like.
Yeah,
So.
for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And I almost think, putting those sandbars back on the catch list might be.
That has to happen.
Well,
You
so
know.
no, there's no doubt. So here's the catch with that. The reason they went on it to begin with is the inshore species, blacktips are one of them. And for some reason, despite all the news channels when they get bored showing the thousands of them on the beach every year, it was believed that they were undergoing overfishing and were in trouble. Blacktips were. So they are a species that are caught on the same gear as the sandbars and everything, and it's a marketable species. So they're undergoing a research that I can't remember the term right now, which it blows my mind because I hear it 4 times a year, 1,000 times at each meeting. But they're undergoing that research program right now where they're basically counting them. How they do it, I don't know. And if that number comes up strong,
It's ridiculous.
they'll reopen that fishery, and the sandbars will be a part of it. So they'll also come off that federal protected deal. And fortunately, that's going on right now. That counting process. I can't believe I can't think of it.
Hey, wait a minute! You weren't here yesterday.
How do you count a shark?
Where did you come from?
Dude, that's how they do all of it, though. Every species. Bottom fish, you can't. At least when you can fly along in a helicopter and actually quite literally see the sizes of the.
Right.
So that coral reef thing, I remember sitting through all those meetings.
Oh, the one that lasted a day, or
No,
nice.
this
That
one went for
years.
years.
Which one?
Well, they're still they're
South-
still there. I'm
Seth-
still.
It
dealing
was
with that.
Seftree.
Then
with the
I'm
new
thinking
reef-
of a different thing. now.
Is this with the new reef fish card for the 13 species we got to carry?
No, this
in
is
the
something.
tournament?
This is something different. So I sat through all these meetings, and these people were like, "There's no sharks out there." I'm like, "You are out of your freaking mind. There's no sharks out there." They're like, "We set lines all the time. We don't catch anything." I'm like, "Well, where do you set them?" We go just south of Port Everglades in 40 feet and put lines out. We don't catch a single one. I'm like, "Well, duh. There's no sharks there."
Right.
You know. I'm like, go a little deeper or go north, go south, and put them out. You'll catch all the sharks you want. And they didn't believe me there's any sharks out here.
Yeah.
And these are the scientists doing the count.
Oh
Yeah.
That and their dives were all done on.
It's
on
science.
Yeah, on these horrible dive spots and
with
Look,
bubbles and
the whole thing that I've always kind of laughed about is when I heard about the reason why we didn't have a red snapper season was because the release mortality was so high. And first it was vent to fish, and then it was do this. You got to carry a venting tool. You got to use a circle hook. Then now it's use the elevator thing and all that. And my son, 2 years ago, 10 years old, goes, "Dad, how do they know how they're doing in a week after you let them go? How do you know? I mean, no matter what you do,
they don't.
you have no idea. So how do you
Right.
figure out a release mortality?
It's all equations. I sit through these meetings. I can't believe I have a single.
So what's their
It's all
justification
algorithms.
for it?
It's
Then?
all- What's that?
What's their justification for it with the algorithms and the numbers and what do they say? What's the answer?
Well, the answer is I think right now they're at
Money
like
from the Pew Foundation.
they're at every meeting, several of them, but I think they're right now at like a 15% discard mortality, and they're trying to get that number down to like 5 or 7% to where it'll buy back some fish. But also they've actually just recently, so they have very big science boats that go out there and they set traps and they
Seen them last year up our
Yeah.
way, or 2 years ago.
big white boats. So
Giant traps.
Yeah, and so all commercial fishermen that used to trap fish will tell you that low flat. And again, I fucking getting old. And I can't remember anything. The name of the type trap they use doesn't work. It'll catch you all the small fish you want, but it won't. A dome shaped trap catches the adult fish, and that's all they used to fish. The commercial guys did. Harder to carry on the boats. They stack whatever. There's issues, but they outproduce by tons. Well, the science community doesn't use the dome trap. They use a flat one. Saying, well, the age recruitment is minute. There's fish are smaller and it's not getting bigger. We need more years of this extremely reduced fishery in the red snapper fishery to get the age back up, the size back up. Well, everybody that's rod and reel catching them is catching nothing but monsters.
Yeah,
So
20,
they say,
30
you guys
pound
are
reds,
wrong.
It's crazy.
So 2 years ago, they started putting GoPros on the mouths of the traps. And the first video this dude's showing at one of the council meetings like a year ago is this 20-pound sow ramming the gate, just trying to get her ass in that stupid trap with it. And she couldn't get him. And he literally, the scientist whom I'd had arguments with prior and just quit to go do something else, says, she really wants in there, doesn't she? She says, yeah. You think you see now why you're not seeing as many mature fish in your traps? One, it can't get in there. And two, you're dead on the bottom too. And it's also been shown that the majority of the really big reds are well elevated off the bottom.
So this is interesting that you're talking about this, because a couple years ago, one of these boats was up off of Stewart. And I'm looking at it, and I'm bottom fishing. I'm wondering, it's a research vessel, big blue research vessel. They got cranes, and then I see polyballs floating around. I didn't know what the hell they were doing. Then I look, and at one point I see a trap come up out of the water or go in the water, and it looked to me from a distance, it looked like a crab trap you see on Deadliest Catch,
Yeah.
big rectangular square thing. And all I think about is that trap when they talk about it on there is 800 pounds. And I'm looking and I called the guy on 16, and we started talking on a different channel. And they were working their way up the coast, and they were doing spot checking for snappers and groupers or bottom fish. And I'm thinking to myself, well, first of all, the guy's dropping in the middle of fucking nowhere. He's in a desert.
Yep.
Second of all,
That was another thing.
he's dropping this trap down to the bottom, and they're giving it like an hour for a fish to acclimate and come back and check it out. And I'm thinking, this thing's slamming in the bottom. There's laying 3 or 4 traps out, drifting around for a little bit, going back and pulling them up. And they did have, at this point, they did have cameras on them, I believe, then too. They were talking about, they would see what would not necessarily come in the trap, but what would come back and check
Around
it out
it.
from a curiosity standpoint. But it just seems so,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term, moronic,
Yeah.
the way they were doing this.
So the very first meeting I'm at, this guy's sitting there telling me about these traps and how they do it. And I asked him, well, who's running the boat? Licensed captain, whatever it is. What's his experience? Well, he's a yacht captain. He's a great captain, whatever. Is he a fisherman? No. I said, well, how do you come up with where you dropping these traps? He says, we go on a plotter and just whatever. And I said, dude, you gotta be a fisherman to know where you're gonna put your traps. There's 10% of the fishermen catch 90% of the fish because they're better than everybody. You're going to get some yacht captain to run your boat. You have the slightest idea where to drop your traps.
They were in the complete desert, man.
Yeah, and that's what he said. He said, well, it doesn't matter where we put them because we have to find out how many fish are scattered evenly throughout the. Well, dude,
No, you
do you
don't.
live in the middle of the desert? Do you live in your nice, comfy house with the air conditioning and everything? If you're
Where
not,
there's a lake, a creek, and a Publix.
The argument to that is, what's the point of an artificial reef program if they don't work and you don't aggregate fish to a certain area?
well, the current science community also, the leader of it, hates artificial reefs. Says you're not creating more fish. You're taking fish from natural bottom and they're moving them.
Absolutely not.
Well, how are there still fish in the natural bottom and fish on the artificial bottom? Well, they're just split now. They're not. The arguments that you have to have with these guys.
I think that the work that Bruce Marks has just recently done on Bug Shoal alone has just proved that to be wrong.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right?
There was nothing there.
Every artificial piece of artificial bottom the world over aggregates fish,
Right.
and there's still fish where they used to live too. I don't know, the arguments.
Abundance.
Yeah. It
I don't
increases
know.
abundance. It absolutely increases abundance. More houses, same deal. When they started building condos down here in South Florida, we got more people.
More people.
It's the same thing. It's not
God,
hard
that's
to
such a
figure
good
out.
analogy.
Common sense is like a superhero power. It's very lacking.
And it's hard to come by though.
It's hard to come by.
You guys have no idea. And now it's all over the internet. The last council meeting and this next one. So, and I'm worthless if I can't get in somebody's grill and explain it to them in my manner. I feel like over the internet, I get nothing accomplished. So we're just yelling back and forth over damn computer lines now.
Are they open to including fishermen into suggesting where these things, get planted?
No,
I mean,
not at all.
why not though? Shouldn't their goal to be in search of the truth rather than? Is
they
it?
want to keep it closed.
Is it politically driven? Is it special interest driven? That's a problem for me.
So I'll tell you what happened to me. Art said it in the last couple of meetings with that sec-free thing. I did it for 2 years, and every time we got to what was supposed to be the end of the meetings, we were supposed to come up with recommendations for sec-free to give to the Coral Reef Initiative on how to protect corals and the water and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we got to what was supposed to be the end, they were like, well, what do you guys think? I'm like, yeah, these are the recommendations. They're like, no, you know what? I think we need a few more meetings and a few more meetings and a few more meetings. And every time they did that, it was another grant and another grant and another grant. And I got so frustrated. I said, I'm done. I'm out. I can't do this anymore. I can't watch you guys waste time and waste money and not get anything done and not listen to what we're telling you.
Yeah.
And that's got to be happening all around. Not even just.
There's a new one here. It's that are trying. Their whole goal is to shut down fishing totally.
Right. That's what I'm talking about with that whole environmentalist thing, the militant thing. It's like, come on.
So it started as, how do we protect the coral reefs? I'm like, water quality, pretty much start with there, and that's it.
Yeah.
Then it always came back to no take zones.
Mm-hmm.
No fishing zone,
Oh, yeah,
basically. Yeah,
no
can't even
take.
put a hook in the water. No take,
nothing.
no nothing.
Right, that's the thing that I was talking about earlier
that's
that got shot
your way
down.
too, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Some of the
there's
bait spots
sections,
and stuff
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yep.
But that was the thing I was talking about earlier that got shot down quickly. Remember, like a few years ago, they had, and then
It didn't go
That was
quickly. That took.
we had to beat it back.
I came in late, and that's when it really started because they were really, really. Recommendation was a 94. I remember it was awful, and there were several of them, and there was even a point where they were running out of money. Look, we're broke.
Right.
You guys go out and do whatever you can, try to start fundraising for us a little bit. I said, I tell you what, I guarantee you, I can raise you a ton of money. You drop these two initiatives, these two recommendations, which were both no fishing, no take, no fishing, no nothing, and we'll put coral reef collection jars in every tackle shop, and we'll get on social media.
And you'll load it up.
And we'll get you some dough. Just got to take those two out. No, won't do it. Go broke.
Let me ask you a question.
It was the Trojan horse to get no take zones. This is exactly what it was.
Such garbage.
There's a new one too.
Let me ask you a question. Don't get offended by this. If they're not going to take your advice on where to drop these things, then why are you on the council?
Hoping to.
No, why, from their perspective, then why are they going to bring you in the first place if they don't want your advice and your expertise and your opinion?
By law, they have to have
Equal opportunity.
They had when I got involved, they had to have somebody from the fishing sector involved. Art's on the main council, like the big council. They makes the rules.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to. As it turns out, the science community has a lot more to do with it than the council does.
There's a few commercial fishermen on there too. Ben
Hardig's gone. No, that's the seat I took.
That's the seat you took. Okay.
Yeah, but for Florida, there aren't. For all of them, there's a state representative, and then somebody that represents. There's two open seats. Generally, they'll try to get like either for hire or commercial, and then the other one's like a recreational deal. And and basically your goal, your job is to try to bring the ideas of your constituents, your fishermen that you speak to the table. And then I speak to a lot of commercial guys, and that's kind of where I try to bring it. And then there's a fellow from Palm Beach that tries to cover a lot of the recreational sector. And that's the case for each of the 4 states. But and North Carolina's got a genuine guy that makes a living commercial fishing, and he does a great job for them. And that's really the battle is Florida and North Carolina. South Carolina and Georgia, they really just don't do enough damage to be too terribly worried about what they're doing. But they do bring the people that represent them do bring some great ideas to the table. So but again, though, the fisheries are so freaking different, even within the state of Florida.
Right.
That
Absolutely. one inlet to the next, 15 miles. That's
Yeah.
what I never
Yeah.
understood, treating Key West and North Carolina as the same
It's the
same
stupidest
body of
thing
water.
ever. And they do it with the Highland Migratory too.
Yep.
When they closed the gag fishery for us, or the
Yeah,
shallow
North
water
Carolina
grouper,
did that to us.
it's because the fish are here in the wintertime and they migrate back to them in the summer,
Yep.
and so we can't catch them. They get them all. That's the way I took it anyway.
There's 2 spawning sessions for those too, right? Don't they spawn in the summer up there?
That's thought that way now. Yes.
Right. So if that's the case and we're here to protect the species,
Shouldn't it
why
be
is it
shut down there
closed during
too?
the spawn there? That's been my argument after talking with Ben a few years ago. I see Ben all the time down at the at the marina getting fuel in the morning. We bullshit about fishing and what's going on at the bottom. And great guy, super intelligent on all of it, and just a hardcore fisherman at heart. And we've talked about it, and then that's where my whole thing is just blasted, that we treat these bodies of water all as one entity.
Right.
You know, it's just crazy. It doesn't make any sense at all to anybody that spends any time on the water.
So a group came in. Which meeting was it? It was the South Carolina meeting last year. So it would have been September last year, asking, where are the flaws in this system? And that was, and I begged, and I'm real tight with the Georgia guys, and I begged them, hey, whatever it takes, we got to separate this shit. The flaw, the single, there's 2 big flaws. One, no recreational reporting. It's all guesswork. And that's how regulations are made, is off guessing what the recreational sector is actually catching. So commercial sector is extremely well known. And even the head boat sector, you know exactly. I mean, it's all reported. You know exactly what they're taking.
Yeah.
But the recreational sector not having any reporting is a disaster. That's got to be improved. And then also, the region is way too diverse and too big. It just doesn't work.
It's pretty funny. So about, I guess, when I first started my business, so it would have been 2009, we were having some kids show up from a college wearing their FWC shirt with the little board and all that. They wanted to come up and measure fish, and they had a questionnaire. And the first couple times, the young lady asked me the questions, how much time we spent on the water, how much was this. I said, well, hold on, you can't just write that number. We were on the water 8 hours, but we only bottom fished 1 hour of the day. That's why we only caught one grouper. Doesn't mean we bottom fished for 8 hours. So I can't just have you fill this information out like this. So the next few times she came back, she didn't ask me the question. She asked my customers from Minnesota what the hell we were doing. And I'm like, so I stopped doing it. You know, it's like you can't. I felt like the information was being used against me in a negative way, right?
Yeah.
It's some of these answers to these questions that they ask are not yes or no answers. There has to be, and even
Minutia.
if you've given an explanation,
They want their grant money.
they're not going to read it.
Yeah.
You know, where's that paperwork going to
Right.
go?
Ding ding.
If they get a favorable report
Aha.
to toe the line, they get their grant money.
Yeah, it's just.
It's
And you're
certainly
talking about students; they really don't know any better yet.
No,
you know what I
they're
mean?
doing what they're
but
doing what
they're
they're told
doing
to
what they're
do.
told. They're being pushed out as
They're
soldiers.
trying to learn.
Yeah, they're like interns. Like
Yeah.
they ride with me all the time on the headboat.
Right, and I get part of it, but like I said, you know, filling out the red snapper forms. So this was another push that I made the other day on my social media, actually before the idea of the Taxman page came. We got the form we got to fill out. We fill it all out, and it's, you know, how many hours is your trip? 8 hours. Well, we caught our limit at an hour and a half, so I put the fishing time for them, an hour and a half, make little notes. They don't really give you room to do that, but at the bottom, is there any notes? And I said, yeah. Sharks are a real problem and need to be highly regulated in my
or
area.
deregulated.
Managed.
Managed.
I think I put, and so I took that photo and shared it on Facebook for every recreational guy that's going to fill this out and mail it in. If you've ever had fish eaten by a shark,
Let them know.
Let's put the comments on here. Let's let them know. You know, it's just like when people come red snapper fishing with me and we catch one that's 20 or 25 pounds, or we catch 10 in a day that are 8 to 10 pounds, and I got to let every one of them go. And people go, why do we got to let them go? There seem to be abundant. I said, they're overabundant. I could go over here
And
with a
really whack
chicken
'em.
rig and catch 150 of them if you want.
Right.
You know, now they're all probably gonna be 16 to 18 inches, but I can catch you 150 of them in an hour. Piece of squid.
And those are the ones I'm catching off Hillsborough now, and I haven't seen, like, in certain spots where I'm catching them right now. I've never ever seen them before in my life.
Yes.
In over 30 years.
Old timer guy that I used to commercial bottom fish when I first got started, 15, 14 years old. He owned a boat called the Chamois and ran a head boat for a while, but John Bogan. But the way we understood it, they never really made it south of Jupiter on any level for the longest time. maybe there's some down in the Keys and stuff, but
For sure.
for Jupiter, and it's weird. People come to me and they go, "Hey, we want to go catch yellowtails." I'm like, "Oh, they don't really have yellowtails up here. I can go chum." This one day, pretty good story. I've landed on a wreck that we have out off our inlet, 140 foot, and we've been catching some jumbo beeliners on it, and we catch groupers and whatever else there. And I had one person with chicken rig, one person with live bait. We caught about a 5-pound yellowtail. I think it was giant, one of the biggest ones I've seen besides Eastland Harris. So drop another, catch another one.
Shit.
Caught 6 or 7 of them. Tomorrow I'm coming back with chum. I'm anchoring up. I am gonna waylay these things. Went back. I haven't caught another one there in 3 years. But that's just something to say. Like I feel like our coral and our reef systems, correct me if I'm wrong, change as you go further north. Different kinds of structures. Those yellowtails, just guys can get down and drift boat them all day long, and maybe come up to the southern end of the Loran Tower and have good days up on the inshore reefs. But our head boats never catch yellowtails.
No.
Never.
It's
I don't
It's
know
crazy.
anybody.
And there's a spot in Jacksonville where dudes whacking them.
Yeah.
Whacking
Yellowtails?
yellowtails.
Really
Yeah,
wild.
yeah. I mean, and the crazy thing, there's a spot in North Carolina where you would think they don't catch the yellowtails, but you would think it's South Florida with the species and that they catch on the thing. It's the bottom gets right, and those fish are going to be there. The yellowtails, I've never heard of them making it that far north. But then, did you know there's a Caribbean red snapper? Totally different than the American red snapper.
So maybe this is it. So I've been catching one that
Is it spicier?
It's spicy because when you keep it, you don't know if you're going to get in trouble or not. I've caught a few that
Likes to dance.
look like a red snapper, but in their tail, tips of their tail and their finlets, they've got a little bit of yellow or gold to them.
And they got
their
smaller
stripe,
mouth.
Their stripe pattern is different. Their anal fin is slightly different. And I've taken multiple pictures, and I've just I almost thought they were a cross between like a schoolmaster and
What's that
red
other
snapper.
Well, they got that other snapper too that they think is a hybrid or something. But hang on, I'm gonna see if I can find that
But
picture.
we've caught maybe a half a dozen of them in the last 8 or 10 years, and you catch them on a chicken rig or whatever. Nothing big, maybe 4 pounds or something like that. And no, he's got just enough detail. We're going to throw this one in the box, and I'll have the argument.
Yep.
So I've actually caught 2, one of them and a red snapper on a chicken rig at one time. We were able to take a picture. I'd have to go back through my log of it and find it, but it was discernible differences. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. We'll have to find that and put it up. John will put it up and in the post edit.
Yeah,
there
that's
so
a
people
regular
can see
red,
it.
right?
Looks like a regular red to me.
Yeah, y'all got to see the. You won't believe.
You
Look
send
at
that
this.
to John so he can throw it up on screen.
one-
And we were wearing these things out. They're all like 17, 18 inches, but
You know, the nice thing is you're in state waters.
yeah, we can keep them all year long as long as they're keepers.
So I want to kind of see if, like, on this show, like, something could come of it rather than us just sitting here and
The shark thing.
giving our opinion and saying, hey, this, that, the other thing. Like, I'd really like to see if, like, we can accomplish something like regarding, like, plan of action. Whether it's the tournament and developing that and maybe taking a step forward and taking action, or if there's some sort of petitioning that we can do, or what is the channel that we can approach to make, for lack of a better term, a positive change in this?
Tim Pickett over at LP sits on the HMS council. He goes to every meeting. I think he's on the council. I know he goes to every meeting. Definitely want to get in touch with him, and through him we can find out who the right people are to talk to for sure.
So, and I can reach back out. So it's interesting. This guy kind of ghosted me after I had the conversation with him in Publix. He sent me an email regarding like when National Marine Fisheries was going to start their project in 2021 or whatever. And I've sent him I said, man, have you looked at the Facebook page and seen all the people that are having the problems? And, he told me they were going to give me an exemptive permit to be able to keep fish that were out of season that got bit, so they could take DNA from I guess every shark bite leaves a sample of DNA in what it bites. So when I was talking to the guy, I'm like, how are we going to gather the science when I'm fishing every day and say I get shark bit for a week, and then you come and there's no sharks around for a couple days because the conditions changed. We had a big swell, tide went south, whatever, they moved, right? Shit happens. And that's a big part of what fishermen don't understand. We have a red snapper season in August, which isn't the most prolific time for us to catch them. Maybe we have some cold water or we have a swell from a hurricane. Nobody catches red snapper. Oh, my God, they're depleted. That's not the case, in our 4 days that we were allotted. But this guy kind of went dark on me a little bit. And he said there's a budget and a proposal for, science-driven data to be gathered through charter boats up and down the coast starting in 2021. but he hasn't replied or responded to me since I created the page. I tried to get some feedback from him. He worked with Harbor Branch. He sent me an email. We can go over that maybe later. Maybe somebody else can try to reach out to him too, and see. Again, I think we could probably all agree commercial harvest is going to be the best way to do it because it's highly regulated, right? And that's going to prevent people from being cowboys going out there and doing the wrong thing. Ultimately, a shark tournament sounds fun, and I know they have them in the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast all the time, but it's not going to come without some backlash for anybody who's got their name behind it, So there's definitely a risk involved with it. I guess you would never really, as the saying goes, you don't know till you go how bad it's going to be. But I think we're all in agreement something needs to be done. There's been some petitions. I don't know if you saw them. They were started on the page, but I don't know how far those things go, man.
Yeah.
They got the signatures that they needed for what people were doing, but
I didn't see them. What were they for?
One of them was for opening back up the shark fishing commercially, that it was sustainable. Another one was for not feeding them, to shut the dive operations down. So
I was
federal
looking through
though, so
earlier when we were talking about it. I was kind of looking through this paper, which has some information regarding that bill that we talked about earlier, and I think that's really a key component to all this, is that not getting signed. I think ultimately Ronnie's got to sign off on it. So, if he doesn't, then it's kind of dead in the water, right?
Caribbean red snapper.
You found it?
Yeah.
that's it.
The Delph boys caught it down there. And I guess they catch them from time to time. But you can see it's a totally different fish.
Yeah,
The mouth looks
Who,
different.
Amanda and Emily caught it?
No, the Delph.
Oh, the Delph. I thought you said Gale Force.
Delph boys down there
Okay.
in Key West.
Nice. And we'll get that over to John. He'll put that up so everyone can see. So I think if DeSantis doesn't sign off on that bill, then there's other components
Can I give you this and you
to
figure
it
out?
as well regarding if he feels like to determine state shark fishermen are fishing sustainably enough to remove the bill's 2025 cutoff, because there's also a 2025 cutoff for anyone that does have that license now, right?
I've got a friend that helps me out a lot here with this fishery stuff, that I think she can speak directly to them even and help.
I'm gonna bring her
Just
on
thinking, yeah.
the show.
Yeah, she could probably.
Is she local?
She's a lobbyist. No, she lives in Tallahassee.
Okay.
She's a fisheries lobbyist.
She's
basically.
sharp cookie too. I like her.
Yeah.
Kelly.
That's who I'm thinking of, right?
Kelly.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's extremely sharp.
Well, maybe we can bring her in on a Zoom for an excerpt for one of the
She's
continuing
around a lot. She
episodes.
might be willing.
It would be interesting to have in here. I think, at least from what I've read, obviously would be fella Thomas. That's on
Yeah,
there.
without a doubt.
Yeah, he would
from
be, he'd be cool.
from the commercial and the scientific aspect, and he may have, from the guys that have to ride with him and the people that he has to deal with, he may be a person to just totally get involved anyway. I mean,
He knows all the right people.
he does know the right people, so he may be.
Yeah, that'd be good. Because, like I said, I do want this conversation to accomplish something, if possible. Because we can sit there and talk about it till we're blue in the face, and those in legislation are going to come just look at this show and just laugh at us, and just be like, "Yeah, whatever you guys are just talking about, it doesn't really matter because we got the pen."
right.
I think it starts with removing the nuisance ones that have already learned the bad habits, and then not letting them learn those habits again. Which one probably starts with the shark feeding,
Right.
and then who knows how it goes from there.
Yeah. What about even I know you said about seasons for the divers and everything. That was a great idea. But what about also just opening up seasons for fishermen too?
Well,
Again,
there's
you're talking about legislation.
You mean for shark fishing?
Yeah.
And who wants to go?
so that's the thing. There's
Who
so
wants to fiddle with them?
right.
I don't know.
A lot of guys
There's
don't
gotta
wanna
be
mess with
grants,
them.
right?
There's
I don't
gotta
wanna
be-
kill
For it to happen.
Yeah,
That's the thing. That's the thing. It's like,
I've got no
people
interest in
like, I don't
killing
want to unblur that line. People think we're just out hacking up sharks in here.
I don't want to hook them. I want nothing to do with them. Period.
Right.
I mean, charter fishing. I've only had a few guys in the however many years, and they were kids, and they wanted to catch a shark, and we hook up on a shark, and guess what? My fat ass 15 minutes later.
You're
started-
cranking on them. Exactly.
Yeah,
They don't want to
they
deal
give
with
up,
it.
you know?
It's just like butterfly jigging. Hey, man, Cap, can we go do this? Yeah, here, this is what you do.
Right.
And
5
then
minutes later.
two drops later, we've lost 3 jigs, and now they're too tired to
They're too
jig.
tired.
So
Yep.
we don't do that anymore.
Yeah. We just had Mike Lipsky on last week. He was talking about this slow pitch chicken, and now that's a little bit more easier on the back. But
Yeah.
You know what pisses me off more than anything too is I don't even know why I've got an anchor on my boat anymore. I don't anchor fish anymore. Can't. Second that anchor hits the bottom, they're sitting under you waiting for you.
It's true. We do a lot of power fishing.
Got to.
Yeah, can't do anything else.
Yeah. And that used to be a great and fun method. You'd anchor down and you caught, flew a kite, you caught all kinds of shit, bottom fishing, and it's just not an option anymore. Current's blowing too hard, bottom fishing ain't gonna happen. It's drifting, you're blazing by. And fast current, when you're anchor fishing, works. It's
Usually good.
Yeah, you can't do it. It's aggravating.
It's tough. It's tough. I mean, I hope my whole goal from coming here and starting that page was to start with awareness.
Right.
I'm not obviously Art, which I didn't know before this meeting how involved he was. And there's guys that have much more knowledge on the situation than I do from a science standpoint and all that. But I think
They don't.
No,
I'm not saying the scientists
rules
do.
maybe.
I'm saying the fishermen that have been involved that go to the meetings or find time to go to the meetings and stuff like that. I'm not saying the guys that are pushing a pencil have any knowledge, because when I went to the red snapper meetings years ago when they made the proposal and we went in and there was a couple hundred fishermen, they had a stoplight and you could talk, and then when the light turned red you had to shut up, and it lasted like 30 seconds. That's about all you got to say. That kind of was the last meeting that I ever went to. It just didn't much.
Right.
The last one I went for that was remember when they closed the Vermilions?
Right.
I went to one up in, where was I? St. Augustine or somewhere way up north. And all those people were in there. I'm like, well, the science is telling you this and we're seeing this. It's the same thing with the red snappers,
Oh, with the majority of fish that we regulate. Dude, at the last meeting, they started to bring up bonitas, false albacore. Guys, we can't regulate what you've got on a plate right now. You got an overabundance of these things. Just shut up. Stop. Talking about regulating bonitas.
Going back to that taxman page that you created and what you just said, the explanation of why you created it to raise awareness and everything, it's like obviously that's what sparked this episode today. I think it's a commendable thing, and like he was saying, he was surprised that there wasn't something already out there about it. So that in itself is a positive step forward.
Sure,
without a doubt.
You've done a great thing. I don't want you to sell yourself short on that. You're doing a great thing by raising awareness and obviously
And
you're
putting
right.
yourself at risk a little bit because, like you say, I'm sure you're taking a beating. But
There's definitely been some blowback. Like
There's been a little bit of blowback, but I mean, most people have been nice about it. The problem that I've had with it is I'm encouraged to try to have the dialogue with the divers and other people, right? Yep. And you get people on there that don't care, and it's a reflection on me because I'm an administrator, and that's why I put that little thing on there that I don't condone the senseless killing of sharks. This is not what this is about. This is about awareness and trying to figure out a way to create a problem or a solution for everybody that makes a living on the water. And I think we all have that right to do that, but it has to be sustainable for everybody involved. And when people start butting heads and I have to remove people or block conversations, that's where I fear a little more backlash to my personal business, or somebody goes, well, you kicked me off the fucking page.
Right.
Well, look, I just set some guidelines out. Let's have a civil conversation. Let's not call people names. If you don't have anything sensible to say, just refrain from saying it. And it's so hard for people to do behind
there
a
has
keyboard.
been a couple of really good
There's been
Dialogue,
some great
yeah.
dialogue.
some really good posts. It's like intelligent, civil, and and even I hate going back to the diver guys, but a couple of them coming in and say, yes, there is a problem. This isn't right. They shouldn't be like this. So.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys are just posting their pictures up of half-eaten fish and saying, "Look, it happened to me too," and you know what I mean.
That's
But
okay. That's fine.
and that's fine. But like you said, there is some important
I
dialogue on the
encourage that
page.
though as well, because I think the more ammo that you have, the better opportunity. Now,
That's
what
data.
I see people posting pictures where they've got something that to me it looks like a coup to
Coup
cut
to
it
it,
off. Because that crescent shaped bite is what you're going to see from a shark, and we're seeing some bites where there's clean cuts and stuff. I appreciate people showing pictures of makos eating stuff. That's cool, but that's not a problem shark. That's and I don't want to remove those people's
If
posts.
that happens, I'm like, hell
Yeah,
yes.
no,
and
I
they do the same
don't
way.
I don't want to.
Right.
I don't want to remove that post because I don't want to not encourage the people to still be a part of the group and the movement or whatever you want to call it. However, it's not the direction that I want to go. The direction is for the nuisance sharks and to try to find a solution to the problem.
Yeah, well, you
It's
can't-
hard to manage.
Yeah, you got to be careful too. That you don't want to regulate. Listen, if you got a shark predation situation of any kind, show it. Don't we can't look as though we're agenda driven. Only show sandbar bull shark type situations. No, because clearly that's our agenda is to get work done on them.
Right.
But if we start pointing out an agenda, then That's the whole world is agenda driven, and I don't want to ever be linked into that. It's
No, that's a good
show
point.
it all.
But
That's
then
a
I
good
would
point.
also, I mean, I would like to talk to shark experts. A sailfish cannot be a sandbar shark's natural food.
no.
No way.
Right.
You know?
No, they're too
Or a bull
fast.
shark, you know?
You know,
A mako, I would say, is the only.
A mako is probably a natural predator of, you know, on a
And even then,
sailfish.
they gotta put the creep on them.
Yep.
Right.
I think the natural predator situation has changed for a lot of these species of sharks.
Yeah.
You know, they've just become honed in on the boat noise, and they've become adapted to being successfully opportunistic.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah, I mean, even a kingfish, dude. A sandbar shark's not running a king mackerel down naturally.
right.
No,
There's got to
way.
be something going on. The fish has got to be wounded. That said, I did watch a giant hammerhead run a big king down in Ocean Reef, commercial yellowtail, 100 years ago.
Really?
On the surface, slick calm, sun just came up, and the kingfish was skipping like a fucking ballyhoo. And all you saw was that big old sicklefin hammerhead, and
That's pretty cool.
and he got
That'd be
him
a sight
maybe
to see.
40 feet
That
behind
must
the
have
boat.
looked badass.
It was unbelievable. Dude, a big king. I'm like a 40, 50 pounder with
Right.
belly skipping. And he got plowed right behind us. It was unbelievable.
See, that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. In its natural setting, and for sure. I mean, and, you know, to the point of you're talking about with all the people that are on the page and extreme points of view, and it's like, I even hesitate bringing anyone on the show here that's got an extreme point of view on anything. Like, there are certain guys that, you know, maybe
Outliers.
that are gonna, you know, take that brand to themselves and be proud of it. It's like I won't bring them on the show. It's like I want open-minded people that want to come up with real solutions and talk about real topics that are meaningful, you know, to everyone. That's just true to the sport, you know, and that's really the bottom line. Like the extreme guys, I have no interest in that.
That's the only way you can.
Might
come
get
up
you
with
some
kind of
ratings,
solution,
though.
You know?
Yeah, but that's the thing, though, man. That's not my goal. My goal is just to be as genuine and authentic as possible in this show.
I think one of the more unique things that I've seen, and I haven't been in the business nearly as long, but having been a commercial fisherman, having worked on private boats and traveled around the world, and now having had my own business, I've seen a lot of different perspectives. I had my own commercial licenses when I started my business to supplement my income while I grew and create fishing reports. And I got rid of them because honestly, having a commercial license and doing all the paperwork is a pain in the fucking ass.
Night.
Right? Filling shit out on the days that I don't fish. How many times you remember to do that? You know? So, and it's only gotten harder. You know, it's only gotten
Dude,
worse.
that's coming to our industry now, too. I did the same thing, got out of most of the commercial stuff.
Yeah, but now we got to enter everything in that we catch every day and do all that. I know the head boats have been doing it for a
We
while.
don't anymore because I'm state water, so.
Okay.
You're going too soon, though. It's all coming back around. 'Cause
But it was totally, you know, I know guys up and down the coast, you know, party boat guys, they would sit in their house for a day and a half and just knock out all the reports.
Right.
So it was,
150 grunts,
Oh.
23 spots. Yeah.
no, but it was like, it wasn't what they caught. It was just,
wasn't that
it
accurate.
was just
Filling shit
guessing.
out,
All
yeah.
right, whatever, you know, go.
So I just kind of the thing that I find most unique about the site and probably intriguing is the fact that divers, both recreational and commercial, fishermen, both sporties, commercial fishermen and charter fishermen, kind of all united on one topic. And
Yes.
that's pretty fucking hard to do.
very
Right?
uncommon.
Yeah.
Most every time we're butting heads on something.
Right.
There's a common bond here that's been created. And when I said that there's millions of hours on the water by the people on there, that's not an exaggeration.
Hell no.
There's not an exaggeration of the experience that's on that site. So, and for that to not be worth something, to
It's
me,
called citizen
Yeah.
science,
would
and
be
yeah.
mind-boggling.
That's
if
exactly
it's
it.
not
I mean,
worth something.
listen. This is why this is such a topic on the show. The name of the show is Connected by Water, not Separated by Water.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is something I think that really can bring everyone together on a topic. And you know, to that point, if there's someone out there listening to the show right now that has a conflicting opinion on it, that a valid conflicting opinion on it, like you're a professional in this industry, you got some numbers to back it up, or you have a solid opinion on this, I'd love to hear from you, have you on the show. And I don't want to close you out. No
That's
way.
the point
You're
of
not.
the
You're not.
page, too.
This doesn't exist though. There's plenty of people that have different opinions, but they don't spend the time on the water that the guys. Because if you did, you'd see it. You would not
Can't
deny
discredit
the
it.
issue.
Well, I'm talking more like members of the dive community if they want to, stand up for something or say, or maybe someone that is more of like a marine biologist, circumstance that can come in and have a different opinion on it.
There's one place that they can stand up, and that's saying that they don't want their industry to go away or to be reduced. They want to continue seeing 50 sharks on every time they jump in the water. But they cannot possibly say that it has not had some effect. What they're doing has had an effect on the fish, on the
It's
sharks.
been admitted on
Yeah.
some of their pages.
Right, yeah, they
People
said.
have taken photos and sent them to me. Like
they've bragged about changing the migratory pattern. So, I don't want to get pissy about it, but there was a big conversation on there about migratory patterns. And we go back to what the guy said about the tiger shark. It's like, look, maybe there would be 10 or 15 of them there if the thing was able to go and migrate and come back.
Reproduce.
Who knows?
Yep.
So it's just humans have interfered with a lot of stuff, but through our lives, through some kind of management, far before any of us have ever been around, there's been people making rules up and laws and regulations and stuff. But to be able to chum and hand feed sharks, an apex predator that seems to be out of control on some level in population, at least in our area up and down the coast, and not be able to feed gators from a safety standpoint or bears or other stuff. I don't know where there's a disconnect in that.
It's not normal.
It seems
It's
pretty
not natural.
It seems pretty simple to say it's not right to do.
Common sense.
Right. For sure.
Eventually, it's going to create a problem. And right now, it's created a problem that's detrimental to fisheries. Well, if it continues to go on for a few more years and there's a depletion in fish, then it's going to be a problem directed towards humans,
Right.
if not sooner. And I think we already see that in the guys diving that are getting chased out of the water, that are getting bit, that they're admitting we've never seen this before. The attitude when we get in the water. When I was a kid, I used to free dive in the Bahamas. I remember the boss man told me one time when I was go with his kids and I was mating on their boat, and he says, "Look," he says, "you guys go shoot the hog snappers around the head. If the bull sharks come in or whatever, I want you out of the water. But if the other ones are in the water, the lemon sharks and whatever are there, you can stay in the water. A couple of you defend each other, but as soon as they get an arch in their back, get out of the water." And I said, "Like a pissed off cat, Bobby?" He said, "Yeah,
Pretty much,
get my boys out of the water." I mean, you look at some of these guys that are talking. They said they get in the water and they're like that.
They're already
before
there.
they even.
Yeah.
They're just jacked up. You
Just
can
ready to
tell
roll.
they're not just cruising around. They're darting around. They're fired up. They're ready. They know something's coming. And that was studied a long time
That's
ago
unstable.
with
Yeah.
Pavlov. So
Oh, yeah.
it's,
That goes back to 02, 03 when all those gags were on the tugs. Remember the guy that had the little blue dive boat?
Oh yeah.
They said that they could hear him pull the bands on his gun.
They were on.
As soon as he pulled the bands, they were there.
and you got a
And the
lot of
guy
guys.
would continue shooting him and feed a couple of sharks and get.
Yep.
Right. And this isn't all just hearsay, too. There's plenty of video evidence to support all this, too.
Well, we talked about citizen science a little bit ago, and to me that is the most valuable science. Well, I think if it's got 5% of the decision making power in fisheries management, I'd be surprised. I think it's less than that, and they've never come out with an actual order of our science or whatever citizen science and all their different things that go into their equations that create fisheries management. To me, citizen science ought to be 80% of the decision making, because that's a day-to-day guys that are seeing it, and it's just not the case. They don't put nearly enough value in citizen science, in my opinion.
I gotta feel like there's, not having been involved like Art has or Skip in the past, but there's so much involved with the pieces of the puzzle for our daily grind of fishing, right? Whether we're charter fishing or whatever, the current, the water temperature, the water quality, the bait, the this, to that, the time of the day.
Are the fish even
moon
there?
phase. Are the fish there? And then you have a questionnaire that's asked one day, or you have somebody show up to measure your fish one day, but they don't ask about the conditions, or that you had a cold water upwelling for 2.5 weeks here in Florida this time. And it happened with our red snapper season here a few times, where they moved some days, and we laughed about it, like, okay, August, September, really? Like, the worst months? Okay, November now, great, it's going to blow 25. You're only going to have 3 boats go fish. You're going to look at the numbers and say they're depleted just because they're going off the paper data, not what the conditions were in North Carolina or North Florida, or that boats couldn't physically go. That data is not thrown into the science, and that's a big missing factor in my opinion.
It is now a little bit more so because it's such a limited season for red snappers anyway. Like this year they had reasonable weather for the most part.
Correct.
But last year it was basically north of St. Augustine. It was unfishable,
But
guys got
still,
wrecked.
the reasonable weather that guys can go, on my form, it doesn't say, hey, we have cold water and I shot my leads with a temperature gun and they're 50 degrees and I haven't caught a bottom fish here in a week. There's nowhere to say that.
Yep.
There's still some flaws in it, that and I don't even know if that information was ever written down, if it would be taken into consideration. That's
No. Not unless it suited their agenda,
too,
which
too logical.
Right. I mean, I think we hit on that with the whole grant money, and like, here's the thing: it's like, if you talk about the citizen, science and all that behind it, it's like, well, I don't think there's any hope for that if they're not even going to listen to you on the damn board, right?
I would agree totally. That's why I say it's 5% of their equation.
I mean, so I think that internally needs to change, but the almighty dollar is going to talk.
There was days on that thing. I went to lunch and never came back. I was so frustrated.
It's disheartening because you hear that from most fishermen that go, and I think that's why a lot of guys just say, "I'm not going to go to the meeting."
Yeah,
It's a waste of
but I
time.
want to point that
But it's
out
our
on the
livelihood.
show. I mean, you talk about raising awareness. You know what I mean? There's things that, like, the general person doesn't know and understand that happens. They just see that you're on the board and they just assume that you're taking care of things, right? But if they understand a little bit that you are fighting an uphill battle when you go to those meetings, then maybe something could be done about that. Maybe. I don't know. You know what I mean? But it's at least worth talking about.
Yeah, but the council takes such a beating too, because the people on the council, for the most part, are extremely well-intentioned and trying to do the best they can, but so handcuffed by the science community. And then I swear to God, we're the punching bag, because the council has absolutely nothing to do with how many days you get to fish or when the dates are, even for that matter. The NIMS, National Marine Fisheries Service, comes and says, okay, due to the collection of data that we got, these are the days, these are how many days, and these are the days. Like, what the fuck am I doing here all this time? And red snapper are, for me, highly concerning for my constituents. I could give a rat's ass. They got nothing to do with what we do down here, but it's become extremely important because of how important it is to you guys up there in north. But it's such a headache. And then you look on social media, and the council members the council itself is taking a beating. We had absolutely zero control or anything to do with what the dates are and how many days there are. But the science community sitting over there in their corner doing their thing, and for them, it's not. They get their money no matter what. I mean, and it isn't enough. It's government always, shortchanges.
Right.
But it's enough that they're making a living, and they're trying to do your job right. I don't care how much you're getting. Do your job right. But for whatever reason,
Is it a dog and pony show?
it feels like it to me. I don't. That a lot goes on.
I don't want to put you in a bad spot by asking you that.
I mean,
but
I got to go to meetings with these people, but they already know. I mean, I'm very vocal how much I think their shit science is, especially on the recreational side.
I love it.
we're gonna put a big shit science sign right when you on the F post.
I'll tell you something that I heard the other day, which kind of it's an analogy in a sorts to what's going on. But the lady that was attacked and killed up in Maine or whatever by the great white shark a week ago made national news. So they started, everything came up. Of course, and it's alarming now. Oh, should we do something with the white shark? Should we do this? And they had the guy from OSURGE come on, and they did an interview with him. And he said, look, the white sharks are only beneficial to the environment, especially in this area where this happened. He said, and what caught my attention was he said they're highly beneficial to the fisheries. And he goes, if we regulate the white or control the white shark population in areas where there's huge seal populations, the fisheries will be wiped out.
Seals eat
He
them
says the seals are kept in check by the white sharks, so
It's a balance.
we need to continue to keep that balance until the white shark's brought back to
two apex predators in that situation.
right.
We ain't got two.
Right.
You got one.
Right.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. It's kind of an analogy, but not really in the sense. We have a problem going on here, and our sharks here are the seals, and they're eating everything.
They're the seals and the sharks.
And
This is
who our great white
we're out of
shark
balance.
is are the people that are regulating us and not observing to the sharks eating the fish. Like I go back to it again.
I
How can
disagree.
you have a regulation on the fish?
We're the great white sharks,
Okay.
but they've already cut our throats. They've already killed all the white
Okay.
sharks.
Yeah, you could
us.
say that too.
Well, I say us. I should say the commercial.
Well, I think the regulation and us go hand in hand in that respect.
So,
right?
very possible.
It's one body
You know?
of it's getting cut off.
But how do you have a controllable and science-driven regulation on an angler when they can lose 10 times their allowable quota for the day to sharks?
Yeah. You listen to guys like that; they're on the boards.
That's
That's how you do it.
Right, you listen to these guys, but
Right.
that doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. That's my
Hasn't
point.
happened
We're
for
trying to raise
years.
awareness.
Yeah, it
See,
hasn't
here's the
happened for
thing.
years.
Here's the cool thing about Art being on that council, right? He really cares. He's got a lot of heart about it. You know what I mean? He's not doing it just for clout or just for status.
So they come in 3-year terms. You're allowed 3-year terms. My first 3-year terms, I'm starting my 3rd year right now at the September meeting. And me and a guy that came out at the same time from Georgia, dude, are we going to keep banging our heads against the wall like this? You come home every day it's 5 days of council meetings. At the end of the day, your head is thumping. You're so fucking angry.
Oh yeah.
And it physically uncomfortable. And it goes on for the whole week, and it takes a week to sort through all the shit that just went down and trying to finally settle back down and getting into your real life. I don't know if I want this headache
They make
anymore,
it difficult for you, right? I mean, it's
physically uncomfortable.
Yeah, right.
Sick to your stomach, your head's pounding, you're so fucking angry because they're screwing it up so badly, and you know it. And even within the states, like reasonable regulation, especially on the recreational side, is crucial. 60 mahis is stupid.
Yeah.
No, we're not having a successful trip in North Carolina if we don't kill 60 mahis. And I just saw some boats in the Keys crying for years now that our mahi fishery is decimated. We just saw some boats. They had some good fishing for a couple of days. They killed 60 fish each
Right.
boat.
They're filling them all in a 55-gallon trash can.
Yep.
Because they're all this big.
Right.
And they had some quality fish. They had some nice fish.
You see that every once in a while. You know, mahis is a tricky thing. I certainly agree with the quota. The number needs to come way down. The problem that I have is, you know, from people trying to measure a fish that's 20 inches or 20, you kill the fucking fish when you try to measure it.
No,
So-
reduce your limits.
Raise the
and get rid of the
or get rid of it.
Well, you get rid of the measurement. You don't whatever. If you hook it and it's bleeding, throw it in a box.
Right.
But you're allowed 5 per person. 20 fish was where I would love to be. I'm going to be lucky if I can get it to 40 fish. But I would love to see 20 fish a boat, 5 per person, whichever's greater.
It's plenty.
Go. Yeah.
In Canada, the fishery up there, they're super strict. So if you're going to go bass fishing and keep your bass, I think the limit's 2 per person. The first 2 fish you catch, no matter what size, you're done. They catch you bass fishing, you're done.
So there's no release fishery at all. You can't keep release fishing.
Unless there's stipulations on how you fish for them.
That's the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. I don't
No,
Wait,
Way to
there-
go, Skip.
no, I'm just telling you. You keep your 2 and you're done.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
I
that's
hear
what
you.
I want to be able to keep fishing and releasing shit though.
I
You know,
think that goes to with part of why they don't want to have a size limit on the red snappers, because they hope everybody's going to keep the first 2 they catch. That's not, or the first one that they catch. That's not what happens.
shit ain't gonna happen.
So, you know, that there's a double-edged sword there too, you know, not having a size limit, and then people go, oh, well, I can only keep 5 now because I'm by myself. I'm gonna let
Take
them
the
all
5
go,
biggest.
whether they're bleeding or whatnot. I'm gonna keep the 5 biggest, you know. So, no matter what you do, there's a
there's a fine
trade-off.
line there.
there's a fine line.
I get it every day. Like, oh, I got a 19-inch red grouper. That's obviously not going to make it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we keep it? I'm like, well, it's illegal. It's part of that's the rules. And then people from the middle of the country would be like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That fish is going to get wasted.
Yep.
So
Well, that said, not
It goes
necessarily.
back to the environment,
Yeah, I mean,
you
it
know.
feeds the environment. It feeds the
sandbar
ecosystem.
sharks.
Yeah, pretty much now. Yeah, no doubt. And now here's a catch. You see these guys catching these half bit fish and everything. Regulation's still there. You might catch 20-pound mutton that got bit in half and doesn't make 18 inches.
Can't bring it home.
Fish is illegal.
Yep.
But you see they're doing it regularly.
You know.
Which any law enforcement officer that busted you on that, it has no business being in law enforcement.
Right.
But the reality is that is the letter of the law.
You could beat the rat, but you wouldn't beat
Yeah,
the
it's a
ride.
possession.
You would get a
law.
ticket, but you could beat it, I'm sure.
The you know, that was one thing that I thought was unique about this guy Matt that I was talking to from Harbor Branch. We were talking about. I said, look, you're going to book a few days, but with my schedule, you're going to have to book stuff in advance, thankfully, and you know, it might come and the conditions might not be good, but I can collect data for you the whole time. I can collect fish that are half eaten, but I need a permit to be able to bring them in. He said, well, we can get you in whatever other charter boats. I think they called it an exemption permit or whatever.
Exempted
And
fisheries.
they wanted to collect the carcasses so they could sample the DNA, you know, and figure out what kind of sharks were more of a problem or were eating the fish in an area.
How about you just ask because we know?
Yeah, I mean,
And we got
that's
pictures and
exactly
we
why
said
I
it,
just,
but
that's
we said
exactly
it
why I
too,
just
so-
exhaled.
You know, this
Yeah.
is I've said it to the guy, and this is part of why I started the page so they could start looking at the photos and seeing how many have the crescent shaped bite and how many people are showing videos in the diving community of these sharks running rampant everywhere. You know, I thought that was a good start for the data. And like I said, unfortunately, I've reached out to the guy half a dozen times since the page started. Hey, have you seen it? Hey, we checked this out. What do you think? Give me some input. No
Crickets.
response.
Yeah.
No response.
That's-
at
We'll
all.
follow up.
Did
with
you?
it.
I'm sure y'all. I don't know if y'all saw there's the kayak fishery that has exploded, which has its issues
Yeah.
but it's bringing people to the fishery that couldn't afford to otherwise on their own. So I love it. Though there's some conflict, but so there's a chick that caught a real nice tuna, lost a rod overboard. It was insane. It's really cool video though. And she somehow gets a gaff in this tuna, gets in her she got a cute little fish bag on the kayak. It's really a cool setup. And dude, the sandbar sharks are on her like there's no tomorrow. I mean, this thing's bleeding like a goat where she gaffed it. And the thing's literally all but nuzzling the side of the kayak. I mean, there's a safety issue here
Absolutely.
for those. And I mean, are you putting yourself in that situation? Yes, but you should be able to go do that and not run the risk of getting capsized by fucking sandbar sharks.
Yeah.
Right, it's true. We one of our ambassadors here at Connected by Water, Leandro, he's a kayak fisherman, and he's got videos of sharks around him all the time. And he's just like sitting there video laughing.
Dude,
like,
this,
"Whoa."
this chick was
Yeah.
doing the same thing. I mean, this thing was literally face out of the water, like nuzzling the side. Dude, she's got that much freeboard. Her leg is right there.
Not for me.
Yeah, no thanks.
No, thank you.
You know what's
Me
impressive
neither.
too is to see where I can go to a spot and I'll shut down there and I'll look around the bottoms, try to mark some groupers or snappers or whatever, maybe mark some jacks, and then you mark that snaking line. Like,
Yep.
okay, there's a shark here, and pick up and move a mile, and you get one or two drops, and then those sharks are there. Then you get to look at them. You see the scar on the fin or the scar on the head. And you move another 2 miles,
And you see
you get a couple drops, and there's the same freaking shark.
Yep.
You know, I mean,
He's got you now. He
It's
locked in.
uncanny. They hone in
They
onto
follow
the
you.
hum of that motor, and you're done once that happens.
See, well, here's the thing too: is science community will hear that story right there and say, "See, I told you, it's not a bunch of sharks; it's one shark
Right.
that you keep seeing." Well, how is it I'm seeing them, and then every other boat around here
Right.
has got them on them too? It's
Yeah.
not one shark; it's that
It's-
one
it's-
shark's on me.
No, and that's definitely the rare of the occasion, but it just shows that one can be a huge detriment as well. You
Yep.
know, but then you times that times, sometimes there's hundreds.
One educated shark is a
Right.
major, just like one educated bear is a major issue.
Or an
One
Right.
educated shark.
porpoise.
Yeah. Oh.
Can,
Oh,
can
then
you guys
get
even
used to
pull
that.
dredges up there where you're at?
Sharks getting in the
Live
dredges.
bait, we haven't had much issue with that during the wintertime, but
Like a strip dredge, you can put a dredge out.
put a strip dredge out.
Like on the ledge, you cannot put a dredge in the water.
Really.
Anything
It's-
shiny, anything, they're
It's,
coming.
it's
Yeah.
instant. I had one. I built this nice, fancy looking dredge.
You know
I
why?
had all
Because
this
the
cool
guys
stuff.
used to hang the CDs in the water
For
for their
wahoo
teasers,
diving, yeah.
for wahoo diving and for cobias to attract the sharks to shoot the. They would shoot the sharks off. They would make the flasher dredges.
Yep.
Or
They're
they're
all about
flasher
it now.
teasers that dangle in the water.
I found these cool
But,
little. I found them off a freshwater website. These little they look like ballyhoos. They're like this long. I put like 8 of them in a row. They're all down there flashing, and one came through and wiped the whole thing out. First day out.
So I used to hang a white marlin silhouette behind my dredge on occasion, and it's a big black rubber white marlin looking thing. You know, the sharks wanted that bad. It was back there for about 2 days.
Black
and they
rubber?
fucking black plowed it.
Probably thought it was a seal.
Well, no, it looks like a sailfish. And there's no better chum than a fish in your spread. You know,
Yeah,
you got
right.
one fish, but you can
Right.
get more. Well, that was the theory. And it worked once, and then it worked again for the sharks, and they ate it. Sayonara.
I imagine the Canadian regulation officers, they pull up into your boat with like wearing Mountie hats.
They got some.
Hey,
strange,
how many bass do you catch today?
They got some strange uniforms.
Yeah.
Well, that and the
pull
bluefin
up in
tuna
hockey
rule up there,
helmets.
you get 5 bites. Your rod loads over 5 times. That's it. Go home.
Yeah.
That's just the craziest thing I ever heard. Whether you caught him or not, your rod loads up 5 times. You got 5 bites. Time to go home.
Yeah. So if you get that early bite, like before 8 a.m., your day
You
could be
miss
over.
all 5 of them somehow, which isn't likely, but
Right.
Or you hook a seal. They do that shit up there a lot. That counts. You're done. That's your charter.
Yeah.
How do seals fight?
I'm told they rip like a bluefin.
Sounds exciting.
Are they good eating?
Steve-O was telling me one time they got first bait in the water. They get bit.
Up in Nova Scotia?
Yeah, 1:30.
Yeah.
She's ripping off like no tomorrow. Like, coming up. You out there.
Yeah.
Shit, we hooked the seal.
Oh,
Oh,
man.
Steve-O. Yeah, cool.
How
Well,
was
listen-
Steve? I missed the Steve-O show.
No, Steve-O
good.
show's so good. It's
Steve-O's a trip. I love my
yeah,
Steve-O.
he loves coming on the show, man. It's he just likes making jokes. I think the whole time, which is kind of funny, but
Yeah, and how about he got a new gig there within the bite too?
yeah. Steve Doherty, he's moved on to bigger and better things over at In the Bite magazine and
Editor in chief. Right?
Yeah, editor in chief. Yeah, so we wish him all the best luck. I talked to him the other day. He says he's loving it.
Good.
So he's saying, whatever, he's really, really happy with that position. So, and we have now we just recently hired the art director, the former art director from Florida Sport Fishing Magazine, Brian Frieda, and now is working here as one of our designers. So
Nice.
yeah, so yeah, it's pretty cool, man. How the industry just
Connected by
evolves
water,
and goes
baby.
Yeah,
connected by
connected.
water.
I was just going to say that.
That's it. So, all right. Well, we've touched on a lot of good topics today, right? Or a lot of nuances to the
Centered
one
around,
topic,
yeah.
centered around the one topic. And I really want to thank you for making the drive down from
problem.
Jensen Beach today. So your charter, Daymaker Charters.
Yes, sir.
Where can they find that at?
In the internet or on Facebook.
What's
Instagram.
the .com or?
Daymakerfishing.com, Store Florida Fishing Charters.
Yep. Okay.
Either one.
All right. Well, we'll throw that up on the screen. And
Appreciate it.
if you guys are ever in the Jensen Beach area and you want a knowledgeable captain for your offshore experience,
Epic Shark Charters.
epic shark
Summertime sales, dude.
shark
I just want
research.
to go up and go lane snapper
I
fishing.
know,
They catch
come
these
on.
monster lane snappers.
Yeah.
It's gonna get good after this blow too. After the last couple blows we had with Matthew and all that, it just got epic. Our red grouper fishing and our lane snapper fishing got out of control.
Nice.
Red groupers don't exist anymore. Didn't you know that?
Yeah, right.
So that's an interesting. Real quick before we end this thing,
Good.
the science on that one is they've been regulating red snappers not quite as long, but almost as long as they have Nassau groupers. And some fish are just not meant to be regulated. They're gonna do it. They're either gonna go away or they're not. Like there's still some Nassau groupers around. Well, you've not been allowed to kill a Nassau grouper in the States since I was 4 years old.
Forever.
There ain't any more Nassau groupers today than there were when I was 4 years old.
Right.
And it's the same thing with red groupers. They've been regulating and regulating and regulating. There's as many red groupers now as there was when they first started regulating. It's just that's what the fish is going to do. Regulate the hell out
And
of
we
them.
had a drift boat up there, Mike Murray, that owned the Matanza. I had a little 10-pack boat for a while, and he tagged hundreds of those damn things when that tagging program went on for the FWC. And I every day I was catching his red groupers, a mile away. Hey, bro, I just caught another one of your tagged fish, and they were resilient. I mean, you catch them little boogers. He would go back and drift the same zones and catch them the next day.
Tagging
Yeah.
them. Yep.
We do the same thing. They come and they tag mutton snappers, red groupers. They love tagging triggerfish with me.
Yeah, well, that gray trigger thing there too. They were trying to regulate those so heavily. And
They need to lower the limit on those things.
size
Like-
limit.
Oh, they're like piranhas off.
Yeah, no doubt. That's happening.
I think
that's about
it's
the-
hard to mutton fish up our way at times. Just
Triggers,
they're bait
yep.
stealers, man, and they're all
Yep.
8 to 10 inches.
Yep.
They just reduced it though from
Yeah,
14 to 12, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're all like 11 and a half to the fork.
Maybe we,
There's nothing better than eating a big hubcap though. Them things are pretty tasty.
Yeah.
they are.
they're
Too.
yummy.
It's a fucking nightmare to
Poor
cut.
man's lobster.
Yeah.
Good eating.
Sweet.
Yay.
It's one thing a shark can't eat. They can't bite through it.
They chase them though.
They
Oh
do.
yeah.
Anything we want to plug before we sign off? Native Sun Charters.
Few
Yeah,
sharks,
please call me.
right?
Yeah. Plug some sharks.
You want to fish out of Hillsborough Inlet, right?
Yep. Yep.
And you get some Fish City Pride going on here,
Fish
Right.
City Pride, Pop Top, whatever you want.
right? Fish City Pride Pop Top. Here we go. Get some quality fishing out of Hillsborough Inlet. Get some quality fishing out of Port St. Lucie Inlet.
Yep,
right?
St. Lucie Inlet,
St. Lucie Inlet. And there you go,
Two
guys.
worlds apart and yet regulated by the same people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You couldn't have a more different fishery. It's amazing, and it's all the same.
It's not even 100 miles apart. Not
No.
even close.
No.
You were on the.
How long did it take you to drive here this morning? About 45 minutes to an hour?
Hour and a half.
You on the 20?
Oh, you kind of came
Hour
during
and a
the
half.
rush
on the
hour morning.
2720? Is that what's a
2711.
2711? All right,
Yep.
you're not even 60 miles away.
But I mean, just the bottom fishing that goes on in Jupiter with the drift boats and all the free spool shit and everything that everybody does and
Yep.
how they bottom fish. If I can't anchor or I can't power fish and hold my boat into the wind and the current and slow the drift down, I don't bottom fish. I don't do the drift thing. It's just totally different. I don't know anybody except for Mike that would do it. And the head boats, they're always anchored, but totally different. Totally different styles of fishing. and a lot of different species,
Yep.
on the bottom.
Yeah.
There is kind of a fence for a lot of those species because I think the coral is different.
Right.
Their habitat is different.
Temps are slightly different.
Temperature's slightly different. But man, we need to do something about the sharks.
We do.
That's it. We definitely did need to do something about the sharks. So we got some homework to do on this one, some plan of actions to follow through with. But check out Let's Tax the Taxman on the Facebook, right? It's a group organized to open up this discussion. Hopefully we can get some headway, and hopefully we can find some way for Governor DeSantis to watch this episode and help us out a little bit. So, all right.
Yep.
All right,
good.
cool. Your
Appreciate
ego is not your amigo. Right? Always do your best and let God do the rest. Right? And if you're in the market for a brand new Ram truck, call the fine folks at Joey Carty Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. They will hook you up and help you out, get you riding in style, right? And if you're hungry, which I know you are because it's lunchtime, go see the fine folks at Papa's Raw Bar, right? Get everything you want from the finest raw bar in all of South Florida. I think the world, personally. Also, check out the food truck at Papa Amigos there. They got that thing driving around in Old Town Pompano. Troy and Cassie got the situation dialed in and got your stomachs in mind. So, John, anything else we need to plug?
Website.
Oh, yeah, our website. Go visit connectedbywater.com. Buy lots of straw hats and artwork and fishing shirts and all that kind of cool stuff that we make.
Right
So,
on.
all right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Farewell to the fair Spanish lady.